Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we're going to be reading an article from Yahoo News on how the State Department has issued a memo warning diplomats not to talk about de-escalation in Gaza. And so I don't know how many of you are aware. Hopefully you've been watching my prior videos and other videos like the Duran and Jackson Hinkle and things like that on other channels. But there is a war going on in the Middle East, and I think it might be one of the opening salvos for World War III. I'm calling this conflict the Judeo-Islamic War of 2023. And we will see it will probably last into 2024 and potentially could bring us into a world war. Ray Dalio, the hedge fund manager, has talked about that as well. So let's look at this article on how the State Department does not want talks of de-escalation. So there were some tweets early on talking about de-escalation, but those tweets were deleted by the Biden government. So a child injured as a result of Israeli attacks is brought to a hospital, okay? As Israel escalates its attacks on Gaza, the State Department is discouraging diplomats working on Middle East issues from making public statements suggesting the United States wants to see less violence, according to internal emails viewed by the Huffington Post. In messages circulated on Friday, State Department staff wrote that high-level officials do not want press materials to include three specific phrases: de-escalation, ceasefire, end to violence, bloodshed, and restoring calm. Okay, so that should concern you, and it should tell you how evil the American government is. This conflict, which is going to potentially lead to the complete extermination of over 2 million Palestinians, the United States is not doing anything to de-escalate. In fact, they're making sure that people don't even use the word de-escalation. Okay? And they're saying you can't say end to violence or bloodshed, and you can't talk about the restoration of calm. So that should obviously concern you. That should tell you which side is the violent side here and which side is the one actually causing problems. The revelation provides a stunning signal about the Biden administration's reluctance to push for Israeli restraint as the close U.S. partner expands the offensive it launched after Hamas, which rules Gaza, attacked Israeli communities on October 7th. That's the thing. There's a few things there, really. One is, why would we listen to Israel in this case when it comes to not restraining them? Like, if the United States is really the dominant power between the two, Israel and the United States, then why isn't the United States allowed to dictate terms to them? Why is Israel allowed to dictate terms to the United States? And then on top of that, why is Israel considered to be, I've never understood this. I have a ton of people, I grew up in very red Republican conservative circles, and a ton of people say Israel's our closest ally. If you believe that, please leave something in the comment box telling us, how does the United States benefit from Israel? They've given us the USS Liberty. They've given us the dancing Israelis. They've given us a lot of other things that I would not consider to be particularly good things. So I'm just kind of wondering, if you think that Israel is United States' greatest ally, is it the donor funding that they give to political candidates? Is it AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee, or whatever AIPAC stands for? I mean, is that what the benefit is of them, all the donor money, the lobbying money? Because I'm clueless about what exactly makes them our greatest ally, why the United States always does what Israel says. So please let me know in the comment box below. The emails were sent hours after Israel told more than 1.1 million residents in northern Gaza that they should leave their homes and shelters ahead of an expected ground invasion of the region. On Thursday, the United Nations said Israel had given Gazans a 24-hour deadline to move to the south of the Strip and warned that it would be impossible for such a movement to take place without devastating humanitarian consequences. And for people who were moving to the south, Israel bombed them. So there really is no out for these people. These poor people are dying by the thousands. They've had their water cut off. They've had their food cut off. They've had their electricity cut off. I mean, this truly is the largest open-air prison in the world. Asked about Israel's evacuation orders on Friday, U.S. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby declined to reject or endorsing it, calling it a tall order. I mean, this is very obviously something that is impossible in such a small area with really no place to run to. Saying it's a tall order is ridiculous and just shows how how Zionist controlled the American government is. We're going to be careful not to get into armchair quarterbacking the tactics on the ground by the Israeli Defense Force. What I can tell you is we understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to move civilians out of harm's way and giving them fair warning. When reached for comment on the directive, a State Department official said they would not comment on internal communication. So the thing is, Israel is bombing hospitals right now. Hamas has tunnels under the ground. So Hamas is not going to be the ones harmed by these various tactics, by these bombings. So Israel very clearly does not care about civilian casualties here. U.S. officials have said they expect Israel to abide by the laws of war in its operation against Hamas, but they have avoided discussions of a ceasefire, even as aid groups and some analysts have suggested that may be essential to allow civilians to flee Gaza and allow vital supplies to enter the area after Israel cut off electricity and water that the Strip usually relies on. And so people can't even flee the country. There's literally nowhere for them to go. Egypt is not allowing them to flee right now. And it's not a matter of evilness on Egypt's part, or at least I don't think it is. I think they're not allowing them to leave because if they open that up, that would make it legitimate for Israel to bomb those locations, because they would say, look, we let them leave and they could have left into Egypt and they didn't end up leaving. And on top of that, even more of them would become refugees probably, because Israel would never allow them back into Gaza. They would just be refugees within Egypt at that point. So I think Egypt knows better than to open up that corridor right now. Earlier this week, Secretary of State deleted and replaced a post on Twitter in which he mentioned Turkey's call for a ceasefire. Israel's operations in Gaza had killed nearly 1,800 people so far, the Gazan Health Ministry said Friday, including 583 children and 351 women. U.S. officials believe there are 500 to 600 American citizens in the area. Israel has repeatedly bombed the exit point from Gaza that does not lead into its territory. Last weekend's Hamas-led attack and Palestinian militants' rocket fire since then have killed a combined 1,300 Israelis, Israel said on Thursday. U.S. President Joe Biden has repeatedly pledged to support Israel as it seeks to avenge the unprecedented Hamas assault. Yet, as Israel's biggest source of diplomatic and military support, the United States has significant leverage in the matter of how the country chooses to seek retribution, and whether Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tries to limit the civilian toll of his response. And obviously, they're not going to use that because the United States government is completely Zionist controlled. If you look, the neocons and neoliberals who control American government are all Zionists. Most of the officials that Biden appointed to higher office are all Zionists. So this response, it's never going to happen because America is essentially a foreign controlled government. Biden allies may nudge the president and his team to issue stronger calls for Netanyahu to prioritize humanitarian concerns. On Friday, Rep. Sarah Jacobs, a California Democrat who serves on the House Foreign Affairs and Armed Services Committee, urged Israel to reconsider its Gaza evacuation order. My family is still in Israel, so I can only imagine the pain and anger the families of the hostages are feeling right now, and understand the Israeli government's urgency in holding Hamas responsible. I also share the concerns of the United Nations due to telecommunications electricity outages. Many civilians in Gaza cannot receive the evacuation notice, let alone quickly and safely. Oh, that's something. Okay, I didn't even think about that actually. So Israel cut off power and internet access to Gaza, and then they issued a warning that they have to flee to the south. Wait a minute. That's not how that works. That's not how anything works. Oh lordy. This is horrific. The amount of people in the West who are just salivating at this Israeli empire just massacring people, like openly massacring people. It's wild that this is occurring in my lifetime. I never thought I would see this. So yeah, that's happening. The short timeline of the evacuation notice does not provide the civilian population of over 1 million people enough time to evacuate, nor does it provide enough time for humanitarian organizations to ensure southern Gaza can receive an additional 1 million people. Preserving our moral authority and protecting innocent lives is the right thing to do, and it is also important for the long-term safety and security of Israel. Jacobs continued. 55 Democratic members of the House of Representatives also signed a Friday letter asking Biden to communicate that Israel's response to Gaza must be carried out according to international law and take all due measures to limit harm to innocent civilians. U.S. officials often argue that private persuasion is more effective on partners like the Israelis than public pressure. Okay? They are particularly sensitive about being seen as insufficiently supportive of Israel, given the country's heavy losses and ongoing anxieties about the more than 100 Israelis kidnapped by Palestinian militants, as well as Republican efforts to depict Biden as failing a key American ally. So I think there is absolutely no way, and this isn't taking away from the agency of the Palestinians, by the way. I think there's absolutely no way, given the current technological advances that Israel has access to, that they did not know about the incursions by Hamas. I think what they didn't know was this extent of it, or how far Hamas would go. They thought Hamas would attack a little bit and then retreat, but Hamas kept hold of a large portion of the territory, far more than I think Israel was willing to allow. And so my current opinion is this was something that Netanyahu allowed to happen in order to get support for a unity government. And it went too far, went far further than he was actually expecting to occur. And so this was something that could have easily been prevented given the security surveillance means of Israel. And it was intentionally not prevented. But the scale of it was the thing that they were not expecting. And I could be wrong there. It could be something that, like, maybe every single level of Israeli security is completely incompetent, and all their technology, their satellites, their various other forms of surveillance equipment, maybe it all just did not catch any of the movement within the heavily surveilled Gaza Strip. Maybe just it all failed all at once. Like maybe like the Jeffrey Epstein cameras and the security people just falling asleep. Maybe it's all coincidence. It's a coincidence. Okay? On Friday, Blinken met with Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, which controls parts of the occupied West Bank and contributes to governance in Gaza, but has longstanding differences with Hamas. So another thing to remember here is Hamas is a group that was intentionally supported, funded by Israel, because Israel wanted a militant Islamic faction instead of the kind of secular nationalist faction of Fatah and the people in charge of the West Bank, in charge of the West Bank right now. And so they intentionally did this. Now, I do think, again, this probably got out of hand from what they were expecting. They didn't expect Hamas to become so powerful. And Hamas is in a weird situation where a lot of other countries in the region do support Palestine, but they don't support Hamas, such as Syria and Iran. They very much don't really like Hamas just because of Hamas fighting on the side of the Syrian rebels in Syria. And both Syrian government and Iran fought on the side of the Syrian government. And so there's some contentions there, but it does seem like there's been increasing unity among Muslims, Sunnis and Shias, and increasingly understanding that the Israeli state is their enemy and is the one fomenting conflict between the two. Okay, Blinken detailed U.S. efforts to coordinate with partners to prevent the conflict from widening. I do think it's going to widen. It seems extremely likely. Again, I do think this is an opening salvo in World War III. The secretary extended his condolences to the families of the Palestinian civilian victims of this conflict and reiterated that Hamas does not stand for the Palestinian people's legitimate right to dignity, freedom, justice, and self-determination. Do they have any of those if Israel is just able to turn off the water there and like just starve them all out by taking away their food? Like, I mean, do they actually have any dignity? Like, do they have self-determination? They're an open-air prison at this point. It's just, you have to be so propagandized to believe anything that's coming out of the American government or Israeli government at this point. Like, I can't wrap my head around it at this point. So anyways, that is our article from Yahoo News on how the American State Department is trying to, if they're not willing to talk about reducing bloodshed and reducing violence, and that means that they're actively allowing and encouraging violence and bloodshed. We at this channel do not encourage violence. We do not encourage bloodshed. So the fact that they're not willing to talk about restoring peace, restoring calm, that's very concerning to us. So Thank you for watching. Please give us a thumbs up in the algorithm. It helps us. Please subscribe to our channel for more content, and please leave a comment in the comment box. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.